Hi everyone, I hope that you're having a great week so far. Yesterday I had a really cool interview with Philip Kennedy on his YouTube channel, Kennedy Financial. So that is why the content of this interview is definitely aimed for his channel. So the intro and things like that. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that, but it was a pretty cool interview, and actually I'd love to have him here on this channel. If you agree, definitely leave a like on this video and leave a comment saying so down below. I definitely encourage you to check out his channel as well for a lot of great content about other ways to secure yourself financially using other options out of fiat currency, things like precious metals and such. He's got some also great interviews with other people who are in the crypto space, and I think it's a great way to, expand your perspective on ways to secure yourself financially. So without further ado, here's the interview.
The economy, markets, gold, and the trends. Turn off the fake news, let the real news begin. We're dropping truth bombs, no Keynesian. If you seek real knowledge, and keep listening. Phil is the host, got an MBA, homework and CPA. Economics the Austrian way. Joker gives assistance. Revolution is now, we are the resistance. So follow the show, tell everyone you know, your friends and your family. KF's where to go to get real news and truth that's substantial. Sit back and relax, it's Kennedy Financial.
Indeed, we're back, everyone. Good to see everyone again. I think we're up to episode 260 now, so just plugging away here in 2020. Have a great guest lined up, as everyone knows. Thanks for hitting the subscribe button, tuning in live. We'll take your comments and questions here soon. But first, as always, KF Content is brought to you by our sponsors on Patreon. We couldn't do it without them. Many thanks. Sponsors help us to not have to read different other sponsorships. Other shows are great, but I like the fact that we can just keep rolling through interviews and not really have to stop to talk about all the products we're pitching. On the other hand, if you do want to get the Make Gold Money Again coffee mug, you can always find that in the KF store. I've got mine here with my tea so I don't lose my voice. Today's guest, you know her well. You can find her on Twitter at Blockchain Chick, Crypto Maximalist, Fiat Minimalist, Digital Nomad. Other than the digital nomad part, all those things describe me. Heidi Chakas, thanks so much for coming on Kennedy Financial. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Well, as I told you in the pre-interview, it's a perfect time to have you on because people become more interested in the crypto space when things are pumping, and people unfortunately think that it's going away when prices are crashing. I had barbecue with a boomer friend of mine the other day, and he said, Bitcoin, is that still a thing? I'm like, oh yeah, it's very much still a thing. But to put things in perspective today, as I told you there in the pre-interview, we've got BSV up nearly 100%. So on the one hand, it's very exciting, but on the other, you've been in this space for quite some time. You literally have a channel on YouTube called Crypto Tips. Everybody should go over there and subscribe. If you were talking to someone like my mom today who is clueless about this space, and maybe they run into someone, hey, did you hear that there's this thing called Bitcoin? It's going crazy. It's going to be, the next internet boom. What would you say to them? How do you sit them down and talk them through what this evolutionary technology is?
Exactly. That is exactly where I would start, is like why it was created and why it's an evolution of money in the first place. And as a matter of fact, that's kind of how my whole channel shifted post the 2017, 2018 pump, has been to address the fact that so many people jumped in at the top of the market, not knowing what they were buying just because they heard it on mainstream media, and they're not exactly promoting really why cryptocurrencies are existing. They're just talking about this new hot thing to invest in, all this promise of like really good returns. And so it's kind of like I've kind of started doing damage control for the past several months of bringing people back to why it was created in the first place. And yeah, like a day like today, it's a perfect example of, again, too, like you said, you talked to a friend, thought it was dead. Me too. A friend of mine actually got talked to me today. They're like, yeah, so crypto's gone, right? And it just makes me want to laugh. And it's kind of like that's where their headspace is at. And you can either take it upon yourself to, sit that person down and really lecture them about it, or you can give them little breadcrumbs and hope that they can kind of also come to their own conclusions. That's another big thing that I like to try to do on my channel is keep it kind of agnostic to the fact of just letting people come to their own conclusions based on like what coins they want to invest in. Pretty much just trying to help them understand what are some of the core principles that they need to be understanding to value in this space. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of people are subject to prey out there. Unfortunately, I did see it in 2017. And maybe even in some ways became a victim myself. I can't say that too much. I did fairly well because I started entering the market in late 2016. But, you had things like this on CNBC Crypto Class, how to buy Ripple when Ripple is at $2.57. So that's kind of a clue to folks now, right? When you start to see it on the mainstream media, that's not necessarily a good thing. It might potentially be a good thing in the long run, but in the short run, it might hurt you in your pocketbook. Is that kind of your opinion too, or do you have a different thought?
For sure. Yeah. And also a big indicator for me is like, if I'm getting more views or more subscribers on my channel, it's kind of like a hint of like, okay, more people are pouring into this, which I mean, it's probably good for my channel and for your channel for their sake to have run into some quality content creators, who are trying to really educate people in the right way. And that's exactly it, totally mainstream media. And that's what a lot of people say is like, if your mom is asking you about it, if they don't, if you're not, say, YouTube personality about crypto and your mom is asking you about crypto, it's like, okay, they are they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for trying to get investors in, or whatever. It's the mainstream media has definitely not been one to be a trendsetter. They're ones who are kind of following the trend, and so the trend has already been in effect long enough to validate the mainstream media to finally talk about something as disruptive as cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, that's a real dichotomy for you and I, crypto content creators, where on the one hand, we're prone to think, well, we're putting out good content, so our channel should grow 10,000 subscribers in a month. But on the other hand, that probably should be a clue that things are getting a little toppy. It reminds me in The Big Short when the character goes down there and his name escapes me. He played Michael Scott on The Office, but he goes down to Florida and he's talking to the two mortgage brokers, and they talk about their previous jobs. And one guy was running an ice cream shop, and it's like he calls his manager back in New York City, hey, it's a bubble for sure. Well, you are indeed a digital nomad, and in terms of scheduling our interview, we had to pick it at the right time because you are not here in the United States. So tell us about that in terms of your perspective on going around the world, seeing different places, just some of the thoughts that go into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency outside of the United States.
Well, yeah, I mean, one trip in particular that really stands out is one that I took, I believe, 2 years ago. And I went through South Africa, and I did kind of like a bus trip up the east coast of Africa. Anyway, so I was staying in an Airbnb in South Africa, and this woman I was staying with, she, they always ask you what you're doing. I say, oh, I'm a travel blogger. I try to keep it light. And then if they ask more, then I'll divulge. I'm not trying to like give them my life story right off the bat. So she asked, and I told her, a YouTube channel really about Bitcoin, and her eyes lit up, and it ended up where we organized for kind of like a meetup a little bit, or like me just talking to the people who she published this information on, like her local Facebook group. And there's all these people interested in investing in something as a way to escape their kind of not hyperinflating, but at that time it was the South African rand was inflating quite a bit. That was like September 2017. So if they did invest, hopefully they did pretty well. But I definitely stuck to, just really reiterating why Bitcoin is different than a fiat governmentally controlled, politically manipulated fiat currency. And yeah, that was like my first experience of like people really hungry for information, not just for like a quick buck, but to legitimately secure their wealth in something that they don't think, their government could mismanage in a way in their detriment. And then also continuing up and even more desperate situations was a man who I met in Zambia, who was pretty much volunteering his time to help support this local school. And so, and he didn't know anything about like cryptography, obviously, or like even like decentralization. But the very fact that he could invest his money in something that didn't have anything to do with his government was like the best idea for him. So like it just opened my eyes to this whole idea of like Bitcoin and decentralized networks and an economic policy that can be set that isn't necessarily politically manipulated. Like that idea, I don't think will ever go away, especially for the people who really need it. They know that it exists and they're going to pursue it as best that they can for their own benefit.
Yeah, and the idea that this just came into the free market voluntarily. No one forced Bitcoin on anyone. People choose it of their own free will. And that's what has given us now a $160 billion market cap for Bitcoin alone. I had Da Vinci on a week ago, Da Vinci J15, early Bitcoin enthusiast. And he's going around doing these meetups, talking to people and trying to share the idea that, hey, this is going to change lives, but it will be volatile. And I think the reason it's going to remain volatile is a lot of fortunes will be made and lost along the way. Here you alluded to some of the hyperinflations that are suffered in Africa. Imagine if you saved in Bitcoin rather than the Zimbabwe dollar or note, whatever it was. Imagine just how much better off you would be. I mean, you could take your wealth and emigrate somewhere else and start a whole new life. And I really think for a lot of poor people around the world, this is the biggest thing that cryptocurrency has to offer in the long run. Obviously, in the short run, a lot of people are going to be shaken out, and that's a shame because I think you and I both believe that it's here to stay. To your point, talking about government-controlled currencies, I just keep, I'm like a broken record. I just keep saying it's time for Plan B. You see these tweets all the time, probably as well. Federal Reserve officials are considering lending cash directly to hedge funds through clearinghouses to ease stress in the repo market. But that could be a tough sell for policymakers. Gee, I wonder why. What do you think about all this? The things we're seeing nowadays just seem like they're such outliers in terms of financial history. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, maybe you think differently. I don't think we've even seen the real repercussions of the inflation that we saw as a reaction to like the crisis in 2008. The amount of inflation that we saw from the Fed, that, I mean, it's still gone on, like everyone says, we haven't really recovered from that, which is obviously true because the bailouts and all those things. But yeah, I mean, they're getting, I don't know, it's like kind of amazing that how flagrantly they're doing this, and to think that, I mean, they also are getting away with this because people are a lot less sharp, really, and with understanding of like what this all means and the way that it affects them. And how inflation is a hidden tax on people, and that does affect their purchasing power, and they don't have a vote in it. So yeah, I mean, it's every time I see anything like on Zero Hedge or a lot on Twitter, it's like it's always a doomsday scenario, but it's like not a doomsday scenario because there are other options. Like you said earlier, it's a voluntary system cryptocurrency. That is the most beautiful part of it. And I think that is, in addition to it being a properly decentralized network, whether it be Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency that can achieve that, the fact that it is a voluntary system will stand starkly against any kind of like central bank stablecoin that's going to try and be relevant by being a cryptocurrency, or however there's many ways that they can also benefit from being a cryptocurrency stablecoin, through tracking the payments and getting more information on their um, citizens and capital controls and things like that. But I think hopefully, I mean, that's been kind of my real guiding light in my channel too, is just trying my best to remind people of the differences between this new kind of economy, what it could be, and why it was created in the first place, what inspired it. So
Yeah, I've said 1,000 times on this show, necessity is the mother of invention. To me, it's not a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008. We needed something like this. The world needed a trustless, immutable, decentralized unit of account that couldn't be manipulated and is censorship resistant. So it was time for something like this. We got a question coming in from Casso. Casso, thanks for the question. He or she writes, for Heidi, do you use cryptocurrency to pay for things during your travels? And if so, how do you do that?
yeah, I have. I mean, I've used it for buying some airline tickets, which isn't always easy. But there are some travel sites. That's mostly what I don't really use crypto debit cards, just because the limits are so low, and in order to up those, you have to go through some KYC things, and they're not always super reliable. So I'm not quite sold on crypto debit cards yet. But yeah, I mean, for traveling, there's quite a few travel sites that work with crypto, like Cheap Air, I think, and Travala, I think, has recently added cryptocurrencies. But yeah, I'd say that's the main
Well,
use for it.
there's a tendency to hoard crypto because it's Gresham's law, right? So I know that folks like John Kim, who's a Litecoin maximalist or enthusiast rather, says, hey, get out there and spend it because we need to spread the technology. And the best way to do that is to spend your crypto. I tend to agree, but I also sympathize with folks who really just want to hold it because it's a tremendous wealth transfer tool. You talking about certain stable coins, I always pick on Ripple, mainly because they invited Ben Bernanke and Bill Clinton to come speak. But I made this meme here. Mr. Bernanke, how will we get people to actually buy it? Easy. We'll just call it a cryptocurrency. And the idea that the Fed would come out, or any central bank would come out with their own stable coin and try to trick people, isn't that just kind of preposterous?
Yeah, and I think this is one thought also I had, was like, how ironic would it be if their implementations of stablecoins would bring like a top-down adoption of cryptocurrency for people, because they would get exposure to roughly how it works through force, maybe if they have to use it, but then it could definitely open the gates to other cryptocurrencies that the moment where it's like a freedom to use it, and you can even use privacy coins if you so choose, or mixers and things like that, and really try and protect your privacy that way. So yeah, the irony there is pretty heavy.
So, with you traveling the world a lot, you get to see different cultures, talk to different kinds of people. I keep saying Tim Draper has a recent quote that really resonated with me. He talked about the fact that governments, as a result of cryptocurrency, are going to have to shift from the business of control to the business of service. And there will be countries around the world, it seems like Malta is one of those places that's already standing out, who will want to welcome folks with their newfound crypto wealth to provide them services in the hopes that they build businesses and make their economies even stronger and better. Is there any other places out there that stand out to you that might be welcoming to crypto folks?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Portugal, that's where I am currently. They've also came out twice to solidify their position on taxation of, at least for individual investment, like income tax from investments. It's tax free for crypto here in Portugal. Um, yeah, so there's one, like Indonesia. I've gone to Bali a few times. that's not so you think it's really ironic because it is very affordable, and that's where a lot of like digital nomads go, and there is a growing crypto scene there, but man, the government is not so easy to get on with crypto, and also like the people there have been really heavily scarred by different kind of Ponzi schemes, and for them, unfortunately, this there are companies there who have taken advantage of people there under the guise of cryptocurrencies. So it's really interesting seeing something like that, where like it is kind of like a third world country, really, Indonesia. Um, they could kind of like people talk about like the flippening of like Ethereum or Bitcoin like taking over each other, but imagine like on a bigger scale of these countries that have been like low down on the list of wealth or whatever,
Hmm.
and how they are so eager to have any kind of a leg up on the competition that all they have to do is be friendly for it, hopefully educate themselves, and make some smart decisions on what they're actually going to promote and how they would facilitate that. But they have such an opportunity to facilitate yeah, a beneficial economy for themselves, just by, again, by encouraging people, like you said, of with crypto wealth, to start businesses, to live there, to invest, and lucky for them, usually, typically, the people who invest in cryptocurrency are more open-minded, and yeah, so yeah, I think there could be a different kind of like a global flippening happening with these different countries. But so yeah, so my own personal experience again has been with Portugal, because that's where I do spend a lot of my time, and fortunately that's how they came out there. I'm trying to think of anywhere else. I went to Malta, and see, I went to the conference in Malta, and a lot of talk though was like about promoting these central bank stable coins, heavy regulations.
Mm.
And I mean, I understand how from a business perspective you want to know what the regulations will be to know if you want to work within that. But I mean, I don't know, I'm not sold on regulations and their ability to secure the investors, or. So I'm on the fence about Malta. I'll just say that.
And what about, not to put you on the spot, but in terms of the United States here, Caitlin Long is on the forefront of trying to create rules and regulations surrounding cryptocurrency in Wyoming. So I think certain states will emerge that tend to be more crypto friendly. Uh, are you optimistic about crypto and Bitcoin here in the U.S. in the long term, or do you think that it's going to end up being the undoing of the dollar, like I do?
I think that if you saw the hearings for like the Libra coin, and how all of those members and their positions and their fear that a lot of them have, I think that that says a lot about the position of the US in crypto. And I think it's commendable for Caitlin Long and what she's doing. I do understand that not everyone wants to leave the United States, and that, if you're going to be living there, at least you could have, because there's the state legislation and then there's the federal, right? And so at least you could have half of it be friendly. But again, all the states are dictated by the federal government, and it is, again, the US dollar that, they are definitely threatened by, at least by something like Facebook, who already has the user base. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not terribly optimistic for the US, just because of their track record of wanting control and doing whatever they can to do that. And unfortunately, they're getting more and more flagrant about it. And so it's not like, I don't know. It's that same thing where it's like the Americans, they have to, kind of stand up for it and demand, how they can be treated. And like you said before, it's like other governments are going to be more, uh, more service based, which is beautiful because that's what they were supposed to be in the first place. Um, so I mean, I don't know what would have to happen for that to US to have to make that switch. I'm not too yeah, I'm not too optimistic for that outcome for the US. But I mean, again, at least at least who knows? Maybe you never know what can happen from someone like Caitlin Long or other people really trying to make moves for their own individual states. I'm not going to try and extinguish that. That's for sure.
Sorry, I was distracted by some of the comments about BSV. Take profits, Jay. I just wanted to get that in there. This isn't normal. This is not a normal day. I can't remember the last time a top 5 coin was up nearly 100% in a single day. That had to be like maybe some 2013, late 2013 moves or something like that. I haven't seen that in my time since I got in the crypto space. So you alluded to it earlier, Heidi. Most people haven't learned about money during their traditional education. And that's a real shame because that's why they're taken advantage of. Henry Ford said it best over 100 years ago, just after I think the Fed was created, or maybe just before, is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. It's our job as content creators to try to educate people and reach out to them and explain some of the nuances of the fiat monetary system. If you're in an elevator with somebody and you only have a minute to convey to them, hey, this potentially could improve and change your life for the better, what do you say?
Well, I say limited supply. It is impossible to be politically manipulated. In fact, I was talking actually to my younger cousin about it, and I was talking about everything about it, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, okay, I get that, yeah, but like, why? What makes it valuable?" And I was like, "Oh, limited supply." He's like, "Oh, that's it. There you go. No one can like inflate it to oblivion." So yeah, I mean, even gold is great. We know it's a limited supply. We don't know what that limit is. We also don't know exactly who has what. But with Bitcoin, it is completely auditable and it is a known limited supply and it is run by a decentralized network that anyone can participate in if you so choose. Like that, I mean, yeah. If you don't, but at the same time, that's hard to do in 1 minute. You can't exactly break down everything that's wrong with your current monetary policy and then supplement it with, all the good stuff about Bitcoin. But because to really value what Bitcoin represents and other cryptocurrencies represent, other, quality cryptocurrencies, what they represent,
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand, again, what it's trying to fix, what it's trying to address.
Yeah, well, and I would say it's worth it to just put 1% of your portfolio in, as Jay alluded to with Trace Mayer. I mean, this is an asymmetric asset. 1% could potentially be 10% or 50% in just a few years, depending on how things play out. I firmly believe it's here to stay. It's not going away. We've been talking to Heidi Chakas, aka Blockchain Chick. You can find her on Twitter at Blockchain Chick. Follow her and then go to her YouTube channel and click subscribe. Heidi, what is your final thought today, and what would you refer folks to in terms of getting more education in addition to yourself?
Yeah, my final, I mean, it's just always learning about really what's happening. It's like you said, it's a shame that more people don't learn about money in their traditional education, like high school, like high school or even college. Because unfortunately, it owns people's lives. Like they're working until they're 65 or 70, and they don't even understand why they have to work that long. They might not understand why their pensions are disappearing. So yeah, just yeah, just always taking a look and seeing really what's happening with your life and what, and the internet is an amazing thing. You can find all sorts of interesting information there. One book that I've been rereading again that's been really hitting it home for me with why cryptocurrency is a godsend, and that is The Creature from Jekyll Island. I'm also, I'm a big proponent of reading books and just opening your perspective and making connections to what you're seeing in real world to what other people have experienced and written about. And another one I'm going to be getting into, I heard it's a heavy read, but what is it? Oh no.
That's all right. There's
Surveillance
so much out there. It's
capitalism.
hard to keep track.
Yeah, surveillance capitalism is another one I'm going to get into. But yeah, I mean, I try to, if you're going to be watching people on YouTube, definitely pay attention to who is kind of selling out, who goes away when it is a bear market, and who has been consistent. Um, yeah, just I mean, it's not a regulated market, and that's kind of a good thing, because if people think it's so heavily regulated, right, their guard kind of goes down, and they think it's all hunky dory and they'll invest in anything, but it's not. It's a kind of a wild west, and just I always recommend people to cost average and invest in what they, wouldn't be sad to lose, because there is no guarantees, but it's a beautiful thing that's been created, and it's a great evolution in money. And yeah, those would be my final thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think those are all great ideas. To give a patently obvious self plug, we did a little Bitcoin music video featuring Naomi Brockwell, Trace Bear, Chris Cody, Caitlin Log, and also Jeff Dice of the Mises Institute joined that. Heidi, I would have asked you, but you and I hadn't met one another back then. But we were looking for crypto enthusiasts who understood economics and things like that. So there's lots of different ways that folks can continue to spread the message of sound money, free markets, and real economics. And we're just glad to have you on and watch you do that. Stay right there, Heidi, so I could say goodbye in a second. If folks really want to help the podcast, they can do so easily, and it costs you nothing. Just look for Kennedy Financial in iTunes. Give us a 5-star review, or give us 5 stars and a review. If you give us a review, I'll read it live here on the air. I don't think we've received any in the last week or so, but this helps push us up through the charts so that people can find great guests like Heidi and figure out really what's going on in this economy. We need to reach as many people as we can. So if you could do that for us, I'd greatly appreciate it. Again,